folks. Welcome aboard once again. I'm Captain Jack. I'll be taking you across the lake today. We have two rules on the boat. First of all, if you're a smoker, congratulations. It's an 80-minute health cruise for you. No smoking, please. No vaping, no smoking. And the other rule is no jumping off the boat. It's pretty simple. That's it. Other than that, have fun. We're here to give you a good time, so freely walk around the boat if you want to. The restrooms are down below. There's a bar down there, as you've seen probably. That is Gina behind the bar, and that was Andy up at the ticket booth. They will come around and take orders if you want. You just stay in your seat. They'll get whatever drink and food orders for you and bring it up to you. If you want to walk around, go ahead. Just keep in mind that everybody's here for the same reason. Everybody paid the same amount of money. So don't stand and block people's views if you would. Just be courteous to everybody. Other than that, it's going to be a little windy today, so as I come in after the cruise, I will ask everybody to sit down and make sure they're not walking around at that point. So other than that, it should be a pretty good day out here on the lake. I think it's going to be 91 today at some point. I don't even know what the temperature is right now. 78, 77 with the wind chill. I don't know.
90.
Is there anybody from the Midwest that can tell me that? All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about me so you know who you're trusting your lives with. I landed this job about 6 months before I retired. I was a tugboat captain on the Illinois and the upper Mississippi rivers. And when I retired, I knew I wanted to move to Mesa. So I talked to the owner of the boat and went and got my license that requires transportation for passengers, completely different from tugboating. The Coast Guard doesn't trust me with people unless I have the right license. So anyway, we will go about 80 minutes or 40 minutes out, 40 minutes back. It's an 80-minute trip. I will talk about some of the geology. I'll talk about the fish in the lake. We'll talk about some of the landmarks here around the lake. Cactus, that's a big thing. We talk a lot about the saguaro. Give you some information on that, since that is kind of our star cactus here in the Sonoran Desert. And other than that, just enjoy the trip. I'll talk a little bit about what's going on at a later date, but normally I just play music in between, break in when I need to tell you a little bit about the lake and the geology and whatnot. So hopefully you all enjoy it. Now I like to find out who came from the farthest away, so you want to tell me where you guys came from? Colorado, okay. So far you're the farthest away. Maryland, farthest away. Arkansas, well, good state though. New York, Chicago, okay. I grew up in Princeton, Illinois, if you know where that is. Off of Route 80 by the Quad Cities. You guys are from Chicago? Oh, okay.
Ohio.
Minnesota, Ohio. Mesa, we have a local. We do get locals from time to time, but they're usually in strollers. Okay, how about you guys? Are you local? Ohio, okay. Chicago. Well, we have a lot of Illinois people here today. Michigan, okay. Portland, Oregon. Oh, beautiful country. I love Oregon. Nova Scotia, I think you're the farthest away. Okay. Can anybody beat Nova Scotia?
Somebody here from Scotland?
Northern Alberta. I think Nova Scotia is still farther away. Okay, well, we do an interesting thing here on the boat. It's a tradition. So the person from the farthest away gets to buy everybody else a drink. Give them all a hand. I'm just kidding. That would cost a lot of money. Okay, well, we're going to get started here in just a little bit. Let me see what time it is. I forgot my watch today. We have about a minute and a half before we leave, so I'll play a little music and then get the engines fired up. As I depart the dock, I do blow the horn, so don't be alarmed by that. And then also we'll give a little life jacket demonstration as we exit the marina. Okay, enjoy the trip. Have to don one of these fashionable pieces of apparel. You would just simply place it over your head and wrap the strap around your waist, clip the buckle, pull the strap tight, And then when the crew instructs you, and only when the crew instructs you, you're going to cross your arms over your chest, fix your hair, and just gently step off the boat. Now, if you were to need a life jacket, they are upstairs in the white bins on both sides of the pilot house. And if you are downstairs, they're in the cabinets below the front windows. And we also have many more stowed below deck. Alrighty, now when you drove to the lake today, you actually entered the Tonto National Forest. And it's comprised of about 2.9 million acres. And I know it doesn't look like a typical forest. The Tonto National Forest extends into the northern parts of Arizona, and it actually boasts the largest continuous stand of ponderosa pines in the world. Now you also entered the Sonoran Desert, and it spans about 100,000 square miles. Now there are about 70 deserts on planet Earth, but this particular desert actually has more variety of plants and animals than any other desert. And the Sonoran Desert does survive on just 12.5 inches of rainfall every year. Now, if you look off to your right, you're going to see the Stewart Mountain Dam. Now, the Stewart Mountain Dam, the construction began in the 1920s, and it was actually completed in 1932. The dam's about 583 feet long, and it's about 212 feet tall. And the water at the base of the dam, which is the lake's deepest point, is 116 feet deep. The average depth of Saguaro Lake is about 70 feet. It's a pretty deep lake. Now this beautiful lake does have over 22 miles of shoreline, and in the winter months, the lake temperatures get to about 55 degrees Fahrenheit, with an average of about 87 degrees during the summer months. Now, on the other side of that dam is where the lower Salt River actually begins. And a lot of people that come on the boat, they wonder, why do they call it the Salt River when it's actually fresh water? Well, the answer to that question is that the river got its name from Spanish explorers who lived about 60 miles upriver from here. And that was over 350 years ago. See, they had large salt beds near the river where they did most of their farming. So they named it Rio Salado, which we translate to the Salt River. Now, the lake was not created for recreational activity, which it's very popular with today. It was actually created for flood control, hydroelectric power, and irrigation. Now, I do need to give a word of caution to those of you on the bow. That's the front of the boat. I do get waves from time to time that splash up on the deck. So, if you have anything that you do not want to get wet, please move it back. I do my best not to let that happen, but occasionally it will happen. And also, we get windy days here at the lake, so if anything blows overboard, I'm not able to retrieve it. So if you do have anything of value, like hats and scarves, or toupees, or eyelash extensions, anything like that, you're going to want to hang on to those today. All right, well, I'm going to play some music, and then I'll be back to you in a little bit, and we'll let you know a little bit about the Four Peaks mountain range. 100 feet in elevation. That's 6,000 feet higher than the surface here at Saguaro Lake. And it may look close enough to reach out and touch, but it's actually 25 miles away from here as the crow flies. Now, if you number the peaks from the left to the right, 1 through 4, you're going to see a prominent scar between peaks 3 and 4. It's going to be angling downward, and you can see that it's a little lighter in color than the surrounding terrain. Well, this is the scar that's caused by tailings from a very special amethyst mine. There are only 2 amethyst mines in the world that produce high enough quality amethyst to be considered a precious gem. One of those mines is actually in Siberia, the other right here on the Four Peaks. Now, the stone is of such high quality that it became part of the crown jewel of 5 different countries, including Spain and Greece, over 350 years ago. Now, you may have noticed that beautiful boat tied up across from us when you were boarding. Well, that's our dockside souvenir boat. And not only do they have very unique Arizona souvenirs, but they also have very beautiful examples of that Four Peaks amethyst that comes off the mountain right there. So when we get back, you want to head on over there and look at it. They should be open. And it is pretty spectacular what they pull off that mountain. And while we do have many different types of rocks, most of what you're going to see is basalt. And these beautiful towering cliffs, those are actually over 300 feet tall. The greenish color on the rocks is not moss, but rather lichen. And lichen is some form of plant life or mold or something that grows on the rocks. Now the black streaks running up and down the canyon walls is caused by rainwater. The water filters through the rocks and it accumulates minerals like iron, oxide, and manganese. Now the black streaks are often referred to as desert artists. We are also very fortunate enough to have two paired nests of bald eagles here in Saguaro Lake. And our eagles live to be about 25 years old. They begin having their offspring after about 5 years. And for those that don't know, bald eagles do mate for life, and they are the fastest growing bird in North America. Now our bald eagles will weigh upwards of 18 pounds. They actually can gain 1 pound every 5 to 6 days after they hatch. And they are fully grown at only 8 weeks old. Wow. So if you were to put that into human terms, if you lived to be 75 years old, you would have been fully grown at just 6 months old. Now their diet does consist of fish and waterfowl, and they have a maximum diving speed recorded at a little over 99 miles per hour. Now when the eagles lay their eggs, they usually lay one at a time, but sometimes two at a time do come along, and both parents do take turns sitting on the eggs. Now when the hatchlings are born, if both of them are male or both of them are female, things are usually pretty smooth. But if one of them is male and the other is female, the larger female will often kill her sibling brother. And the parents do not intervene. It's a term known as fratricide, and it's really common in the animal kingdom, especially amongst raptors. Now as we go along today, you're going to notice the plant life growing out of the cracks and the fissures of the rocks. And we also have many varieties of cacti here in the lake. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, we have the saguaro, which most people know how to recognize. We do have the barrel cactus, which looks a little bit like a saguaro. It only gets to about 4 or 5 feet tall. And we have the ocotillo plant, which is sometimes confused for a cactus. It's actually a plant. We have the shorter staghorn cactus, the prickly pear cactus, and we have the golden colored cholla, sometimes referred to as the jumping cholla. And you'll know why they nicknamed it the jumping cholla cactus if you ever have the chance to brush the site. Now our last cactus here, if you look real close, you might see it. It's called a hedgehog. But you'd have to look really close because it only gets to about 6 inches tall. Ready? Above the rock. And that helps them collect as much rainfall as possible. Now the saguaro can live up to 3 years on that water it has stored from only one season of rainfall. And then after that, those roots will actually fall off. Now a mature saguaro can absorb up to 200 gallons of water in a single rainstorm. And the accordion exterior appearance is more than just looks. It actually aids in the expansion of more water absorption. They can grow to a height of about 50 feet tall, and they can weigh upwards of 8 tons. The mighty saguaro does have a lifespan of over 200 years. And the flower of the saguaro is the Arizona state flower. And it begins blooming sometime in late April. It has hundreds of white-waxy flowers which open up at night. And that's because saguaros belong to a family of night-blooming cacti. Now the pollen is transferred by the long-nosed bat. And when the seeds hit the desert floor, they can actually lie dormant for up to 50 years before they germinate. The saguaro has to be somewhere around 70 years old before it will actually grow that very first arm. And then at that time, their growth rate accelerates quite a bit. So you're going to see an archway up there. Now we call that Elephant Rock. And you can see the elephant's head and his big floppy ears. Now some people see an elephant looking directly at us with ears on both sides of the head. Others, they see the profile of an elephant with the head and the trunk pointed to the right. And then still others who've had a few Desert Belle margaritas, well, they see an entire circus up there. But whatever you see, that's known as Elephant Rock. And then also off to your left, rising about 50 feet from the surface of the lake, is Shiprock. And Shiprock is complete with numerous navigational aids so that boaters do not hit that at night. Now this rock is considered a spire, and for those that don't know, a spire is a solidified core of an extinct volcano. And nowhere else on Earth. The Sonoran Desert begins in northern Mexico, and it extends all the way into central Arizona. In fact, the Sonoran Desert extends about 20 miles north of here. So these particular cactus are in the extreme northern portion of the Sonoran Desert. Now, if you've ever spent any time in very cold climate, and I know a lot of you have, you know that pipes can burst on freezing winter nights. Well, the same thing can actually happen to a saguaro cactus when it's very young. Now, it's a notoriously slow-growing plant, and it takes about 10 years for a saguaro to grow to the towering height of just 2 inches tall. Now, as we make this turn, I want you to look at that hillside again, and you're going to notice something a little unusual. The overwhelming majority of the cactus are actually on the south side of the hill. And that's because in order to survive an occasional freezing winter night, they need to rely on the warm morning sun, which sits low on the horizon and shines over 300 days every year. And those that are unlucky enough to germinate over on the north side, well, they seldom survive our occasional freezing winter nights. Here in Saguaro Lake. Now, this lake is stocked regularly by the Department of Game and Fish. And they stock it with yellow bass, large and smallmouth bass, catfish and crappie, walleye, freshwater tilapia, bluegill, and trout. Now, the largest largemouth bass ever taken out of this lake, believe it or not, was 15.5 pounds. The largest catfish ever taken was 52 pounds. So there's a lot of really good fishing here at the lake. Now we also have a lot of birds and we have a lot of ducks here. We can always see the mallard duck. They're around quite a bit. But we also have the ringneck duck here. And we have the lesser skunk, the bufflehead, and the ruddy duck. Now we also have the western grebe, and we see a lot of them over by the dam. We have the pie-billed grebe, and we also have the eared grebe. Now many of our birds here like to ride the thermals, and they would include the turkey vultures, the ravens, the Harris hawk and the red-tailed hawk, osprey, and the northern harrier. And a lot of birds that we see around the shoreline, you'll see the blue heron, the great egret, and the snowy egret. And we always keep our eye out for the ever-elusive American bald eagle. We do see them quite regularly here at the lake. I need to ask everybody to do me a great big favor. Please check your tickets. See if you purchased a one-way or a round-trip package today.
Yeah, right.
Well, if your ticket shows only one way, that's not a problem. We can drop you off right here on the starboard side. That is Bagley Flats, and that is the nicest campground on the lake. And that's because it's the only campground on the lake. There are no roads leading to Bagley Flats. It's only accessible by boat. Okay, we have gone about 4.5 miles up the lake, and the lake does continue on for another 5 miles until it runs up against the Mormon Flat Dam. And the Mormon Flat Dam is the dam that forms Canyon Lake. That's the lake above us. And then above Canyon Lake is Apache Lake. And Apache Lake is formed by the Horse Mason Dam. And then above that is the #1 lake on the chain of lakes, and that's known as Roosevelt Lake. And Roosevelt Lake is formed by the one and only Roosevelt Dam. At one time, Roosevelt Dam was actually the largest masonry dam in the entire world. Okay, we do have a very rare and unique saguaro cactus coming up on the right. And I'm going to slow the boat down, give everybody a chance to see it. And it's known as a crusted saguaro. And it's going to be just to the left of a very tall saguaro. And you'll recognize it by all the arms being fused together at the top, almost like a baseball glove. Now in the wild, they only appear about 1 out of every 200,000 cactus. And botanists don't know what causes it, but it's some kind of a genetic anomaly. There are some websites where you can actually track their locations throughout the entire Sonoran Desert. But as far as we know, this is the only one that we're lucky enough to have here at the lake. We'll turn the boat around so everybody on the port side of the boat can see it. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they've taken this trip just so that they can see that cactus. That's how rare it is. I think they actually have one at the Botanical Gardens. But to see it in the wild is pretty spectacular. Some of those trails will actually take you all the way over the top of Four Peaks Mountain Range. Now, we used to see a lot of the wild horses back here on the beaches, and there are about 312 wild horses still here in the Salt River Valley. And some of them are actual descendants of the horses that the Spanish explorers brought over 350 years ago. And we haven't seen them here lately, but that's a good thing, because in order for them to get over here, they would have to cross the 2-lane bush highway. And the bush highway is not lit at night. And there were a lot of fatalities, not just to the horses, but to motorists as well. So there is an organization known as the Salt River Wild Horse Management, and they do the maintenance on the fencing along the bush highway, and that keeps all the wild horses safe over on the other side. In the state of Arizona, and we have a little over 300 in the 2 ranges right around Saguaro Lake. Most of them will get up to about 12 years old, and the male rams can grow to about 240 pounds. And their horns, when fully curled, will weigh somewhere around 30 pounds. The female ewes are a little smaller. They only get up to about 180 pounds. Now the desert bighorn sheep can go about 3 months without drinking water. And that's during the cooler winter months, when they get all of their moisture from the plants that they eat. Now when they do come down to the water in the summertime, well, they can drink 20% of their body weight at one time. And that's roughly 7 gallons for a large male. So let's keep our eyes out. Maybe we'll get lucky and see one today. You just never know. they were so moved by them that the owners wanted to do something to help them out. So they hired a professional videographer. And they came out here to the lake and spent a couple of weeks and got several hundred hours of footage. And they condensed that footage into a really impressive 20-minute video. And we offer that on the boat. Now the video comes in two different formats. You can get it as a DVD for $5, or you can get a thumb drive for $7. And what's important about it is that the owners of the boat do not keep one penny of the money. All of the profits go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And thanks to the generosity of our passengers over the years, we've donated thousands of dollars to them. Now the videographer had a drone camera, so he was able to capture a bird's eye view of the lake and a lot of the wildlife that we just can't see from here on the boat. Now he got a whole herd of the bighorn sheep on film just over one of these ridges. He got the wild horses on the back beaches, some bobcat, rattlesnake, tarantulas, coyote, the saguaro cactus in bloom, and all kinds of other amazing footage. Well, the video does come with some additional narration other than what I've given you today, so it's pretty interesting stuff. Now the other good news is that we can take cash for this. It's the only item on the boat that we actually do accept cash for. And that's because it just makes the donating to them a whole lot easier. So what better way to give back than to take home a great video and support some families going through a very difficult time. And if you do choose to purchase the video and support the Make-A-Wish Foundation, we want to give you a great big thank you in advance. It does have a beautiful sandy beach, and it is a widely popular destination amongst the locals, especially in the hot summer days. Now the area also has access to a nice hiking trail that takes you all the way over the top of the ridge to the right and all the way back to where Shiprock was. And then off in the distance you can see some of the Saguaro Lake off-road trail. Now Butcher Jones, he was a doctor here way back in the Western days, and he got the nickname Butcher because he would do amputations on his dining room table. So they nicknamed him the Butcher. Okay, on a little lighter note, when I moved to Arizona, I had to learn about the 5 C's of Arizona. And I'm going to tell you what they are. The first C stands for citrus. And that's because Arizona is currently the #2 lemon producing state in the country. Now the second C stands for cotton. And thanks to the development of Pima cotton by the Pima Indians, Arizona grew enough cotton 10 years ago to be able to manufacture a pair of Levi's for every man, woman, and child in the entire country. That's a lot of cotton. Now the third C stands for copper. Arizona is sometimes referred to as the copper state. And we produce more copper in Arizona than the other 49 states combined. That's about 64% of all the copper mined in the U.S. today. Now the fourth C, it stands for cattle. Arizona does have over 800,000 head of cattle on 3,800 working cattle ranches. Do we have any guesses what the fifth C might be? Somebody's been on the boat before. It is climate. Most of us are here for the climate, and Arizona does have a very diverse climate, and it's not uncommon for the state of Arizona to have both the highest temperature in the nation and the lowest temperature in the nation on the very same day, just not in the same location. And the all-time record high in Arizona was set back in 1991, and that was at Lake Havasu City on the Colorado River. And it got up to 128 blistering degrees. Now the all-time record low may surprise you. It was actually set at Holly Lake up in the White Mountains. And Holly Lake sits at about 8,000 feet in elevation. So back in 1971, quite a ways ago, it got down to 40 degrees below zero. So there really aren't too many states that can boast a temperature swing of 168 degrees. for your safety and the safety of your fellow passengers, I always ask that everybody please find a seat and remain seated until you see us firmly secured to the dock. And once we are firmly secured, I will give you the go-ahead, and you can exit the boat at that time. Now, on behalf of Gina and Andy, we want to thank you very much for coming out with us today, and we hope you had a very relaxing, educational, and enjoyable trip. Now, the crew does work very hard to make sure that you had a pleasurable experience, and like a lot of the hospitality industry, a portion of our wages come from tips. So if you do feel so inclined, we do have a little tip jar at the bar, and we also have one at the front gate as you exit the boat. I would certainly thank you very much for that. And don't forget to stop over next door at the Dockside Souvenir Boat. Check out some of that Four Peaks amethyst jewelry that comes off of the mountainside here. We hope you had a great day, and come back and see us again. We appreciate your business.